And we are live.
All right.
Hello, everybody. Kimberly Graham here. I think we were just discussing that. I think this is our last sort of officially scheduled event. We'll be doing Facebook Lives over the next few days with you, but I think this is our last official scheduled event of this primary season campaign, which is amazing to think about, that it was over a year that I announced I was running for United States Senate. And, you know, if you've never run for office before, and then you see people say things like, I couldn't have done this alone, it's been so great to meet all these people, and you kind of roll your eyes, probably, if you're like me and you haven't run for office, and you go, yeah, whatever. It's true. You can't do this alone. It is so amazing to meet people all over the place, all over Iowa for this past year, all of the volunteers, all of the people who've donated to the campaign. It's just so, I don't really have good words to say how much hope it gives me on this, during this horrific pandemic, in the wake of horrific events, not only in Minneapolis with the murder of George Floyd, but with the all of the numerous events, not even just this month, but over the years and over the hundreds of years of racism in the nation. It gives me hope when I see that there's so many like-minded people who want to work to make things better for everyone, and make things better in the area, particularly of racial justice. And then the people over the year I've met who, not only want to work for that, but to make things better for everyone. So everyone in this country has healthcare as a human right, and everyone has a living wage, and all of the things that provide a basic life of health and dignity. I say that all the time in our campaign, because I think that's what everybody should have in the wealthiest nation on earth, a basic life of health and dignity. It doesn't sound like too much to ask. So that's what we've been working for. We'll see what happens Tuesday. We have no idea. We don't have the money for polling, so we really don't know. But anyway, we're having a house party tonight. So welcome to our house party at our houses. Kimberly Graham, this is Black Hawk County Supervisor Christopher Schwartz. Welcome, Christopher. Thanks for hosting our house party.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for doing this with us tonight. This was an event we had hoped to have in person back in April, but unfortunately had to cancel and move to a digital format because of the COVID-19 global pandemic. But I'm just really excited to still be able to do an event with you, because I've watched your campaign over this last year, and it's been amazing. You're an amazing ambassador for the progressive movement here in Iowa. And I really appreciate how hard you've worked. Like, people say it matters when somebody shows up, and you were showing up all over the state very aggressively. Like, every place you would go, every event you would be at. And that matters so much to so many people, because people often feel like their communities are forgotten or are left behind. And so I could go, but really, so I just want to first just thank you on just running a really awesome campaign that has really uplifted all the issues that we both desperately care about. And so I think let's just get right off and just start talking about some issues. I know we're going to have folks chime in on Facebook. But yeah, and so I think, first, I think the first thing I maybe talk about is just how the COVID-19 global pandemic has really highlighted all the injustices and holes in our social safety net, or lack of a social safety net. And I know that really makes some of the policies you fight for even more critical, and hopefully this has been a teachable moment that people realize on some of those. And so I wonder if we could talk about some of those things like healthcare and living wages right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, just at 4:00 today, we pre-recorded a forum with 8 panelists or participants who are living all over the globe. One of our fabulous volunteers, Aisha, pulled this panel together. And these are people living in Australia, Japan, the UK, Spain, I think that's New Zealand. I might be missing one, but And so the panel was the discussion was the COVID-19 response all over the world. So we heard from these people who are living in these other nations about how their nation has responded to COVID-19. And the one thing that pretty much everyone said in one way or another was our fundamental structures of supports, like for basic life things, was already in place. And so it made the whole pandemic less of a scramble to respond to. And, notably was the healthcare system, the way they do healthcare in these other nations. One of the people was an American, but she was living in Canada right now. And that is that Canadian model is kind of the one that is the basis for the Medicare for All proposal or plan. That's kind of sitting out there now, waiting to be adopted in this country. And, it's just, we did another panel a few weeks ago too with people living in other countries about healthcare, not about the COVID-19, but just about healthcare and how healthcare works in their country. And what I would repeatedly say in these different forums is America is consistently ranked as one of the least happy nations on earth. Whenever they do these studies every few years about kind of just happiness levels of people in developed nations around the world. And I really believe that one of the top reasons why we are among the least happy people in the developed world is because of our healthcare system and our living wage, our federal minimum wage, which then keeps so many pay for jobs so low. Every other nation has some kind of healthcare that does not bankrupt people. Period. You literally cannot go bankrupt in these other nations from medical debt. It's impossible to do. It will never happen. And here we all live with that weight in this country. We all walk around with this weight. Even if we have good health care through our jobs, it still has a copay, a deductible, a premium. And we all walk around going, oh my God, what if I get sick or my loved one gets sick? How much debt am I going to then have? And I think that's just one of the things that weighs on us as a people so much every single day.
Yeah, people talk, I remember a lot of times you hear the debate around healthcare and people talk about freedom, and it's a really perverted sense of it. Because
yes, let's talk about that.
Right. Wouldn't true freedom be the ability to pursue your life's dreams and, to be, an entrepreneur if that's what you want it to be, or to take a job in social services, or at a nonprofit and not have to make that decision about the healthcare for your family. And so it's
right.
Yeah, so many people just struggle, and the cost of medications is outrageous, and it's a very expensive system because we're propping up all these for-profit insurance companies. And I believe that you are the only candidate in the race that is advocating for Medicare for all.
Yes, I only hesitate because one of the other candidates sort of seemed to move to that position.
Okay.
The candidate saw that I was being so successful talking about it, and
right.
but then of late, I haven't actually heard him say those words again, Medicare for all. So I'm not sure what's happening there. But anyway, yeah, I can say this: I'm the only candidate who started out advocating for Medicare for all, and I still am, and I've never changed my position on it.
Right. No, and it's the beauty of some of these positions, is that when you're advocating for what you truly believe in kind of an uncompromised way, you don't have to get jumbled up on what all the nuances of your supposed talking points are. You're able to just talk straight from the heart. I remember the first politician I had the experience doing that on behalf of was Dennis Kucinich. And I was like, oh, this is so easy to campaign on because I just talk about what I believe in. And so it's, but it's what so many people, if you explain it to them, they understand it and they're ready for it. And it's, the other thing you mentioned just now was living wages and how that impacts happiness. I seen that the work too long, work too many hours compared to other countries that are trying to move in the other direction. And at the end of the day, they don't have enough to get by, and certainly not enough to enjoy life or pursue other interests. And so,
Yeah, I always like to look at what other developed nations are doing. Like I always am Googling to see like how do other developed countries do this or that, or other issues. Are other countries doing it better? If so, why why don't we put our American ego aside and
but,
and do what's working, right? And so last fall, I remember I don't know why you remember certain things. Anyway, I remember I was leaving a court hearing and I walked, that was when we were still doing things in person last fall. And I walked out of the courthouse and I was thinking about a $15 an hour minimum wage. And for some reason, all of a sudden it hit me that I didn't know what it was in other developed nations. Like I didn't know what Canada's was, or the UK adjusted into dollars, translated into dollars, or France or Germany. So I went home and I Googled that, and the lowest minimum wage I could find was in a particular part of Canada, and it was only for certain jobs. It wasn't like a blanket minimum wage, but it was like 10 something, like 10.25 or 10.50 an hour. And then every other wage, though, even in Canada, the prevailing minimum wage was more like 15, 18. And then Denmark was, I think, the highest at, I think, 21 or 22. So yes, you can go work at McDonald's or whatever in Denmark and make $22 an hour, like a living, a truly living wage. And by the way, Denmark is consistently ranked one of the happiest nations on earth.
right, absolutely.
And yeah, and it's ridiculous. So the next lowest wage is basically, ours is $7.25, so double at least.
So I know that last night you were participating in the demonstrations in Des Moines. There was a beautiful demonstration here in Waterloo last night, and demonstrations and marches and protests all around the country, and actually even around the world, in response to the murder of George Floyd. And it just reached a boiling point of so many, particularly young Black men and women, dying at the hands of police or in racially motivated crimes across this country.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's really challenging to know everything that we should need to be doing and saying, but I just like to know what your experience is and what you see as your role as a white person using your privilege to fight racism in this country.
Yeah. So I just by habit, I'm still not even sure how he even knew who I was or anything. But anyway, I was invited by one of the organizers of the Des Moines protest last night to be a speaker there. And, from the minute we said I would do it, so I didn't want to say no, because if somebody's asking me to show up for something about racial justice, I'm going to show up. But then from the second we said yes, I just have to be honest. Like I was really, 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 really nervous, because I thought, what in the hell is a white woman going to say about to this crowd of people who are angry about this? And and I've never experienced racism, because I've never experienced discrimination because of the color of my skin. So I cannot understand it, like not on that level of you've experienced it. So what I chose to do was basically address other white people, which, it's Des Moines and Iowa is predominantly white. And so there were a lot of white people there for me to address. And so I basically said to my Black brothers and sisters, I'm sorry, and I will step it up. And the way I sort of put that was, it's no longer enough for white people to be allies. That's nice, but that's like, oh yes, I don't like racism either. I said, I'm going to become an accomplice. And to me, that just is sort of a illustration of an accomplice is someone who assists you in getting something done, not just who agrees with you, or, so to that end, last year, I joined the NAACP, and I mentioned that when I was speaking yesterday. I said, maybe a lot of you white people literally don't know that you can join the NAACP. Maybe you think it's just for people of color. No, it's for anyone who wants to work for racial justice. So join, give them your dues, show up at their meetings, listen to them, see what they need you to do, and then do it. I recently joined the Iowa Democratic Party Black Caucus. Similarly, that a lot of people white people may think that they can't join that or they shouldn't join that or something. And that is a group that is very welcoming of anyone of any race. And, the more, the stronger. So just not just saying I agree and I don't want to be racist, but taking active steps to do that. I'm doing more reading. I'm rereading. It's right here. I'm rereading this, which is kind of widely, for people who don't know, it's the new Jim Crow. It's kind of widely recognized as one of the preeminent basic, and if you want to become an ally and accomplice for racial justice, it's pretty important that you read this book. It was put out, I think, in 2010. Yeah, 2010 was when it was first released. So it's been out for 10 years. The new edition has a new forward. But that, just literally buying books or checking out books from the library about the history of racial injustice and racism in the United States of America. And then when you know better, I really believe, maybe I'm naive, but I believe when most people know better, they will do better. But you have to actively go educate yourself, because as a white woman going to good public schools growing up, I certainly did not learn about the actual history of racism in America, right? It's nothing you're probably, even today, sadly, you're not going to really learn about that. And so we need to learn about it. I didn't even know what, I think maybe 10 years or so-ish ago, I first heard the term Black codes. That's something that every American should know exists. Sundown towns. I hadn't heard of sundown towns. What? I had no idea. And and I grew up in a place where we thankfully, not that we certainly had racism. Everywhere has racism, but we didn't have sundown towns, and we didn't have that. So that was something I just didn't know about, and certainly never got in my public education. And then just showing up, like, I went to the protest last night. I went and participated in a march today, and there's another protest tomorrow at a park here in Des Moines that I'm going to show up at. And it's not about, it's, I was honestly, when they introduced me last night, they said my name. I did not say my name again on purpose. Like, I did not get up to the microphone and say, I'm Kimberly Graham, candidate for United States Senate. I didn't say that. I just addressed other people, other white people there, and kind of said what we can start doing and what we better start doing to step it up. And so when I go to these protests, I just want to be clear. It's not about me. It's about showing up physically, like physically showing up and showing support. And so those are a few tiny things I think that white people, can and must do. Those of us who care about justice, and we must hold people accountable in whatever way works in our personal lives, whether it's your uncle at the Thanksgiving table, or whether it's, friends that you have that are saying racist things. Responsibility to, as they say in the justice movements, gather our people. In our case, white people, and those of us who are trying to do better, help bring along others trying to do better with us.
Right. I see it's critically important. Like, I think the parents think about what are they doing to raise children they're not going to be future, racist.
Yeah. Was it Jennifer? Oh, I can't think of her last name. Jennifer Harvey, I think. She's a professor at Drake, and she wrote a book called Raising White Kids, I think. Can somebody from my team make sure I'm saying that right? I think it's called Raising White Kids. But it's that's to your point, it's for white parents about how to raise your white kids so that they won't, carry this racism on, at least to the extent, somebody had a comment in the chat from Facebook. Poverty, hunger, cutbacks in SNAP, Section 8 housing, in direct needs of those handicapped and those without skills to live independently. When, oh, when will any legislature address that rather than another subsidy for a corporation, another subsidy for a campaign contribution, another promise of hope buried in committee vote to never see the light of day on the Senate floor? I pray for a leader that will deliver for poor, for the forgotten. Please be that leader, a moral conscience for this nation. Who was the author? Oh, the author of the book I just talked about. I think it's Jennifer Harvey. Is that right? The book is called Raising White Kids, Bringing Up Children in a Racially Unjust America. So that's the book, Raising White Kids, Bringing Up, yep, it is Jennifer Harvey. Jennifer Harvey is the author. Court, I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. I was very encouraged, and this is the first time I'm saying this publicly. I was very, very encouraged because I don't want to say who, because he and I discussed it, and I can't say who, but a former very well-known progressive leader in this state sent me an email last week saying that he thought I did a great job in the debates and that he thought I was right when I said that Iowa will elect a strong progressive leader who is authentic and will stand up and fight for them, because that was sort of the criticism of me in all the debates was, oh, you're too progressive. Iowans will never vote for you. And this person disagreed and took time out to send me an email saying so. So I really, really appreciated that. And no matter whether we win this election or don't, and frankly, since we haven't had millions of dollars to spend on TV and direct mail and all of those things, the chances are very low that we will win, but I'm not going anywhere. I will still be here looking for other ways to forward everything I've been talking about in this campaign. And for the short term, I'll go back to representing abused or neglected kids and parents in juvenile court. And I love doing that work. And then I truly have no idea. Of course, I understand the curiosity, and some people are already asking me about running for other things. And that's awesome. I love that people are asking, but I legitimately spent a year working 12 to 16 hours a day. And right now I'm just like, if we win, then I know what I'm doing for the next 5 months until November. It's going to keep working those 12 to 16 hours a days and doing everything I can to win. But if we don't, then I really don't know, other than going back to what I was doing before, but more hours, because I've cut my hours way back in order to be able to run. So
I think, it's critical. To get to what Court is talking about, these are not radical things. This is really getting back to even where the mainstream of America was, not just the Democratic Party, but the Democratic Party and Republican Party used to stand up for these programs like SNAP, and then starting in the 80s and escalating through the 90s. And now you have months long waiting lists to get on Section 8 housing, if not longer.
yeah,
You have folks,
2 years. In Iowa, Chris, in Iowa, I've heard 2 years from some of my clients.
Absolutely. And the idea that now is a time to cut back on SNAP benefits is just horrifying. Like, this is, first of all, it doesn't even make economic sense, because it's when you put money in the hands of people, of poor people and working people, they spend that money, it goes right back into the economy and generates jobs.
Yep.
That, honestly, this is, if you want to get radical about it, I believe that one way to help with the healthcare in America and help with the economy is to honestly give everybody some form of food stamps for healthy, nutritious, locally grown foods. But it's, I remember Senator Harkin used to always say, if every American was eating their servings of fruits and vegetables each day, we physically did not have enough in the country right now. And so if we get to the point where we, change how farm subsidies are done and get to back to growing real food for people, we'd have a massive impact on our healthcare and the economy. But I think it's really great to hear that you're dedicated to this movement no matter what happens on Tuesday. I can tell you, like, it's not easy running for office. I ran for city council, came up short, and ran for supervisor right the year after. So I was running for office for like a year and a half, and it was exhausting. But it's how progressives win, and it's how we get stuff done. And so it's critical. What are some So other things like that you want folks to know about. I know that you touched a little bit on your background as an attorney who advocates for children and families, I believe.
Yeah.
What else do you want people to know before they go and vote on Tuesday?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple things, and one is I would just encourage people, seriously, go to take a minute, since we're voting by mail. You may have a minute to do this. Go to definitely go to opensecrets.org, and type in the name of all four of us who are who are running for this US Senate seat, and look at where the candidate's money's coming from. And you will find out that our money, our average donation overall, not our average online donation like other campaigns have said, so to try to get you away from the fact that they get a lot of other money, big money in other ways, but our overall average donation to our campaign was about $25 over this entire year. That means we had a lot of people giving $1, $5, $10, a truly grassroots, people-powered campaign, which I'm so proud of. And, I take those dollar donations and $5 donations extremely seriously, because what that says to me is somebody that probably barely has 2 dimes to rub together is placing a hope. I'm trying not to get emotional here, but is placing hope on me. And I'm just a dum-dum who decided to stand up and fight for people, but they're placing hope on me that they see me speaking for them, I think, and they are hoping that I will get to a place of power to amplify their voice and speak for them. And that's why they're willing to part with their $1 or their $5. We all donate to candidates thinking that they're going to do something that will benefit us and make us or our loved ones' lives better. And I believe that applies to the candidates who have a huge proportion of large dollar donors, people that can afford to write a $1,000 check, a $2,800 check times 2 if you're married. And I've said this before, one of the candidates has taken over $153,000 in money from corporate lobbyists. And again, I will say it again, in mediation, and I'm also a certified mediator, we say this all the time: we attack the problem, not each other. And please don't anyone mistake this for an attack on a person. This is an attack on a system. Nobody should be able to take $153,000 in corporate lobby money. It simply shouldn't be allowed that you do that. Or if you want to make sure you're not beholden to corporations, then return their money when they give it to you, because you know who gave it to you, because they have to declare their occupation, lobbyist. So, it's just really important that we look at where your candidate's money's coming from and look at what your candidate's already been doing with their lives. None of us have held elected office before, so you can't look at our past votes on, anything. But I have literally been standing up and fighting for Iowans for 20 years in juvenile court, for kids, for vulnerable people, for mostly people in poverty. That's been the majority of my clients. And different. By that, I mean, my job as an attorney is to listen to people, try to find out if there are services they need hooked up with. Do I need to help them get housing? What do I need to help them get? When you're an attorney in juvenile court, it's not just walking into the courtroom and advocating there. It's a lot of social service hooking up and helping and working with the Department of Human Services to try to find out what the resources are and put people in touch with services and things like that as well. And I really see the job of a US Senator as very similar. You listen to people, listen. So you know what they really need to lead lives of health and dignity. And then you go advocate as hard as you can for those things. And Iowans, I think, generally are pretty smart. They know you can't get everything. You're going to be one of 100 US senators. You can't go make magical wand waving and create laws. But I think people just want someone to stand up and speak up for them, at minimum. And we don't even have that right now.
No, we
don't
don't
even have that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, people can read more on the website, which is kimberlyforiowa.com. My whole biography and all that blah, blah stuff is there. So people can go read if they want to know more about me. And also, much to the chagrin of my staff, I personally respond to every email or Facebook message from voters personally. You won't get a staffer answering you. So if you have a question for me, Kimberly at kimberlyforiowa.com is my email, Kimberly at kimberlyforiowa.com, and I will personally respond to you if you have any questions.
Awesome. And I just like to remind folks, I know many people requested absentee ballots. We're looking close to record turnout here in Blackhawk County.
Yay.
Remind people, those ballots need to be postmarked by Monday. And so just drop it in the mail. I know tomorrow's Sunday, but still drop it in the mailbox tomorrow. It'll just be safer. We do have early voting, which is this is Blackhawk County specific, but you can vote early at the courthouse still on Monday by ringing the doorbell at the 5th Street entrance. The courthouse is still closed to the public, but we've got social distance voting location inside. And then the polling locations, folks across the state really should be checking with their county auditors because many of them are consolidated locations. I know in Blackhawk County, it's been consolidated down to 8 locations because the turnout was so high with absentee votes. We're expecting that most people have voted already, but we're prepared. All the voting booths will have barriers around them and the signing locations and are set up for social distancing. And so really encourage folks to get out there on Tuesday. I'm in the primary myself here in Blackhawk County for supervisor. And so I hope people get out and vote for me on Tuesday as well. And just really want to thank you for running a really great progressive campaign here in Iowa and all the blood, sweat, and tears that go into it with you and your staff. And wish you luck and just thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Kathleen. Somebody made a comment. She said, I was thinking you were too progressive for Iowa before I saw you in the debate. Now I'm telling all my friends to take a look at you and having them to vote. Thank you so much, Kathleen. I appreciate it. You know, I honestly, and I mean this, I do not think my position, I understand the labels and buzzwords, I get it, but I don't think my positions are too left or too progressive. These are things people need to live basic lives of health and dignity. And as I've said before, from the time of FDR days, when he was talking about a second Bill of Rights and everyone should have healthcare and everyone should have housing, we're not going to left, we're going home. And the Democratic Party needs to go home, and that's where we're going, back to those values. So thanks a lot, Chris. And say hi to Logan. Hi, Logan, if you're there.
I will.
Thanks, you guys. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.